texted you yesterday about it, but I was taking pictures at a HBCU, and I did this deep dive because I spoke to more people after I spoke to you about, are we doing a disservice to our children by sending them to a HBCUs that are so underfunded that they might not be equipped for our kids? And I know that's a lot. And I know as a kid that went to a PWI, it doesn't matter how many times I say on this podcast, one of my first regrets in life was not going to North Carolina A&T. It doesn't matter because I still went to a PWI. And, it's funny. I have a Puerto Rican wife, and me and her have had this conversation before we got married.
Yeah.
Like, when it comes to college, one of the first things is like, do you want your kid to go to college? All right. We got on there, whatever. We went through that whole long discussion. Then it was like, I want him to go free. The order is free.
Yeah.
HBCU. And then after that, I ain't paying for it. So wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I ain't really trying to pay for the other two. Clearly I ain't trying to pay. But I had an interesting thing because I'm taking pictures yesterday, and I'm listening to an HBCU realize in this whole 8-hour long day, they're talking about how they just realized they inserted 10-year-old internet technology on campus. And they're trying to figure out how not to catch up, but to get ahead. But their biggest thing kept coming back to, we are 10 years behind.
That's insane.
And I text you yesterday and I said, damn, this ain't the first time I've been at a HBCU and they've talked about being behind far as technology or building codes or, and then you look at the last couple of years, A&T sending kids home. What was that? Spelman, or it might've been, I think it was Spelman. Or it was Clark.
Oh, had the flooding down there.
Had the flooding down there. And it's like, a couple years ago, I remember when Bennett was losing accreditation because of money and stuff. And it gets you to this standard thing of like, damn, are we doing our kids a disservice? And how can we combat that? Because it seems like when you hear from HBCU students and they seem to tell you about their social highlights and not the other issues that, hey, I don't deal with at a PWI.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much cooked as a community, right? Which is why I always say, like, top 30 men got to separate and then like rebuild. And like, just to give you an example, Wall Street Journal sent out, job shares, like who works in what field. So going into the schools, job with the highest share of white workers, farms, ranches, cost estimators, construction workers, surveying, property appraisers. So everything that's dealing with money, it's pretty much just, or what something should cost, all white folks, right? Which is why black people's stuff is valued way, way less, right? When you go to Hispanic, it's drywall installers, roofers, carpet painters, maid and housekeepers was at 50%. But all these fields are 60% Hispanic, right? Which which are trades. For the white ones, all these jobs were 95% or higher.
Yeah.
So those fields were 95%. When you come to black workers, this is all the fields that we're in are 48% or below, down in the 30s. Postal sorters, nursing assistant, security guards, postal service clerks, probation officers. These are our fields. Asian workers were manicurists, of course, medical scientists, software developers, physicians, and computer hardware engineers, right? So if you just go off of this list, like, who's not doing shit on this list?
Us.
It's us, right? And the reason why I always say, like, we got to move to the top third, because in the top third, that is where your businessmen are, your doctors, your attorneys, your dentists, your software engineer. Like, we have to, because as long as we keep communicating with this being the pattern,
yeah,
you're going to keep reproducing with people like this that are okay with this pattern. So to go back to, where we started was like, are our schools underfunded? Going back to, the conversation of, having conversation with women. A lot of our problems are just because we're classed down so far that we're having to deal with issues that most other ethnicities will never have to deal with.
Yeah. But it was a real eye-opener yesterday, and I was like sad, and I was kind of like, damn, I want my kid to go to a HBCU. Like, that is a desire for
It would be so easy for our community to get ahead though if HBCUs actually gave a fuck about black people. Because if they did, right, you could go to HBCU and become a software engineer, right? You know, whatever's the easiest path, right? If you taught kids Microsoft Excel, Tableau, Power BI, pretty much that's it, right? If you make sure that every kid came out and had an expert knowledge at those things, could create dashboard and automations, every last one of those kids will have a job.
Yeah, you know, one of my things I don't, and maybe A&T is doing this. I think A&T should, at least in Greensboro, have a STEM school. You know, because
they do have a really good engineering program. They're not known for engineering, per se, or they're known in HBCUs.
Yeah,
but their students do well.
Absolutely, and that's a shout out to them because it should be known. Like A&T should have a STEM school in every major city in North Carolina, where it's like, yo, this is a just a plant of, yo, you go here, you go to A&T, you got you a job here. And that would be so dope. But anyway,
even like geology, right? Yeah. So like I love geology. It's probably my favorite science. Rocks, volcanoes, all that shit, right? Imagine if HBCU was just like, hey, we're gonna teach you geology, right? So you could either work for an oil company, but we're gonna throw in surveying, property appraising, and farming into that geology degree for you, right?
Yeah.
Right. Imagine what the jobs that those kids could run into. They could go work in the oil fields, travel for 5, 6, 7 years, and then they can say, you know what? I want to start a surveying company. I want to start a farming company, right? We could completely change the trajectory of blacks if we actually just focused in on the roles that we just don't have. Postal service, nursing assistants, security guards, postal clerks, probation officers.
It's tough. And you know, before we go to the next part, you know, the saddest part is they had a guy there who worked for the federal government, and he said, unfortunately, the federal government is not willing to give you guys money for an idea y'all are working through.
No.
And he said they are willing to give y'all money for an idea that's been so proven that it can't fail. And he said it's not that we just give random ass ideas and money to other schools. He was like, we look at them the same way, but for y'all, it's going to be a lot harder. He was like, and he told us, he was telling them, you know, if I was y'all, I would figure it out. Whatever it is, because they're
if they're 96% of the cost estimators, how are we going to get in?
Facts. That you know, there was an educator there who had been It was an educator there who had been there for 60 years, and she's not at the school. Yeah, she's been an educator for 60 years, and that was her thing. So, but it was just interesting, man.